The desert wind blew hard across the lonely plain. A human man walked slowly, his boots sinking into the dusty ground. His clothes were worn, his skin sunburned, and his small food bag hung almost empty. He had been traveling for days, searching for shelter or help, but found only silence and sand. He stopped under the broken shell of an old alien building. Ruins from a forgotten time. There, he sat down, wiped his forehead, and took out his last food rash, a small bar, dry and rough. He looked at it and sighed. "This is it," he whispered, "the last one," just as he raised it to his mouth. He heard a soft sound, not the wind, not a machine, but something alive. He turned his head, slowly, carefully. There, hiding behind a broken wall, were two big eyes watching him, small, glowing, scared eyes. He stared, unsure. Then a little shape moved, crouched low like a wild animal. It was a child, no taller than his waist, with thin arms and gray skin covered in dirt. Her clothes were torn, her hair messy, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in days. She didn't speak, didn't beg, just stared at the food in his hand. The man looked at her, then at his ration, then back at her. He could feel his stomach twist. He was hungry, too. Very hungry, but she looked like she might not survive the night. He held the bar out slowly. She flinched, afraid. "It's okay," he said softly. "Take it." For a moment, she didn't move. Then she crawled forward on her hands and knees, careful, unsure. Like she didn't trust him. When she got close, she snatched the bar, backed up fast, and then sat against the wall. She looked at the food, almost not believing it was real. Then she ate it, fast and quiet, like someone who hadn't eaten in a long, long time. The man watched her, feeling something in his chest he couldn't explain. He smiled a little. "Better you than me," he whispered when she was done. She licked her fingers, then looked at him again. This time, her eyes were softer, not afraid. She crawled forward again, slowly, and sat near him. Still, she said nothing. But her presence was different. She reached into her small cloth pouch and pulled out a shiny stone. It glowed faintly, like it had energy. She offered it to him. He blinked, surprised. "What's this?" he asked. She didn't speak, just placed it in his hand and smiled. A tiny smile. Then she stood up, walked away without a word. He watched her go, confused. She disappeared behind the ruins and never came back that night. The man held the glowing stone, unsure what to do with it. He kept it, tucked it into his jacket. Maybe it was nothing, just a strange rock. Maybe it meant something he didn't know. He stood up the next morning and moved on. Days passed, then months, then years. He sometimes remembered the little alien girl, her wide eyes, her silence. The way she ran off into the dust. He never saw her again. But he still had the glowing stone. He kept it on a shelf in his small home. He would sometimes look at it and smile. Reminder of a small moment, a moment when he had nothing yet, gave everything he had. And somewhere out there, maybe she was still alive. Maybe she remembered too. Maybe that small kindness mattered. He didn't know, but fate was watching. And the story wasn't over. Not yet, because far away, in the shadows of the stars, she was growing up. She was remembering, and she was coming back. Not as a hungry little girl, but as something far more powerful. And she had not forgotten the man who gave her his last food. Not for a second. The stars above were quiet, like watchers that never blinked. Years had passed since that dry and dusty day. The man had changed. His hair now carried strands of gray, and his eyes, once bright with fire, were calmer, slower, maybe a little tired. He lived alone in a small house on the edge of a quiet planet. Far from noise, war, and the foolishness of crowds, the days moved slowly here, peaceful but empty. He grew vegetables in the soil, repaired old machines to sell, and sometimes watched the sky at night, wondering what else was out there. He didn't expect anything anymore. He had done his part in life, fought in the wars, helped strangers. Lost friends, lost more than he ever said out loud, but sometimes, when the wind howled just right, he remembered that little alien girl. The way she had looked at him with those wide, glowing eyes. The way she ate that small food bar like it was the most precious thing in the world. He still had the glowing stone she gave him. It sat on a shelf, untouched, quietly pulsing like a sleeping heart. One evening, something strange happened. He stepped. Outside, and on the wooden crate beside his door, was a piece of cooked meat. Wrapped in leaves and still warm. He frowned, looked around, but saw no one. Maybe a traveler, a neighbor playing tricks. But no one lived nearby. He took the food inside, unsure what to make of it. The next day, the old water purifier he'd been trying to fix for months was suddenly working. Perfectly. He hadn't touched it. Then a broken roof tile, long left alone, was suddenly replaced. Small things, easy to miss, but they added up. He was being watched, but not harmed, helped. Silently, from the shadows, he began to leave notes outside. Who are you? Why are you helping me? But no answers came. Only more quiet help. Then one night, while sitting by the fire, he heard a sound behind him. Soft footsteps, careful but unafraid. He turned slowly, expecting maybe a lost traveler, a wild animal, maybe even a ghost from his past. But what he saw made his breath freeze. A figure stepped forward from the trees, tall and calm, wrapped in dark cloth that shimmered like space itself, eyes glowing faintly, skin smooth and silver with soft blue lines that pulsed with energy. It was her. He didn't recognize her at first, not fully, but her eyes, those same glowing eyes, stopped his heart. She looked different, now stronger, older, almost regal. She walked toward him, quiet as a whisper, and stood before him without speaking. He rose to his feet, unsure what to say. "You?" he breathed. "It's you, isn't it?" She nodded, the smallest movement, but her eyes never left his. "You've been watching me," he said, voice rough with memory. "Helping me." Another nod. She reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out the same glowing stone, his gift. Now returned, but it was brighter, burning with energy, like it had changed, grown stronger. He took it, hands shaking. "Why now?" he asked, after all this time. She finally spoke, and her voice was soft but filled with power. "Because I'm ready now," she said, "and you are in danger." The fire cracked beside them, throwing shadows across her face. "Danger?" he echoed, confused. From what? She looked up at the stars, then back at him. "They know you helped me," she said, "and they're coming." He stepped back, stunned. "Who's coming?" She didn't answer, just looked at him with the same eyes that once begged for food. Only now they held something more, purpose, power, and a promise not yet spoken. He didn't know what to think, but he knew one thing. She had returned, and whatever was coming, she wasn't going to let him face it alone. Not now, not ever. The fire was almost out, just a dim glow in the ashes. But the man's heart was racing like he was 20 again. The girl, no, the woman stood in front of him. Cloaked in silence and stars, she hadn't aged like a normal person. Her body was taller, her features sharper, but her eyes still held that same quiet hunger, not for food, but for meaning, for something she hadn't yet spoken. He stared at her, his lips dry, unsure if she was real or a dream carved from old guilt and memory. Then she stepped forward, slowly, like a ghost coming home. "I'm not a child anymore," she said, her voice smooth like still water. He nodded, not knowing how else to respond. She raised her hand and touched the stone he wore on a chain around his neck, the same one she gave him all those years ago. It glowed brighter at her touch, pulsing softly between them. "I thought you were gone," he whispered. "Forever I was," she replied. "But I came back, He stared into her glowing eyes. Why? She took a breath and looked away for the first time, toward the forest beyond the trees. They trained me, she said. They took me in, gave me food, gave me strength, but they never gave me what you did. What did I give you? He asked, almost afraid of the answer. Kindness, she said, without expecting anything back. Silence stretched between them again, broken only by the crackle of a lone ember. Then she said, I watched you for months before I showed myself. Why wait? Because I needed to be sure you were still the same, and you are. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stepped closer and reached into the pouch on her belt, pulling out a strange piece of metal. Curved and glowing with soft runes, she handed it to him. What's this? He asked, taking it in both hands. A beacon, she said. If you press the center, I will come, no matter where I am. Why would I need to do that? She looked into his eyes, serious now, because the ones who wanted me dead. Now. Want you? He froze, the weight of her words settling on his shoulders like armor. I didn't do anything, he said, voice dry. You gave food to a girl who was marked for disposal. She said, you changed her fate, and they don't. Like that. Who are they? She didn't answer directly, but instead turned her gaze to the night sky again. Not all aliens are kind, she said. Some want control, power, and revenge. He swallowed hard. And you're part of them? He asked carefully. I was, she said, but not anymore. The wind picked up slightly, brushing dust across the ground like fingers through hair. Why now? He asked. Why come back now after all these years? Because I'm strong enough now to protect you, she said. And because I couldn't forget you, he lowered the beacon and looked at her fully. She didn't look like someone who needed help anymore. She looked like someone who could end a war by walking into it. Yet there was still something soft in the way she stood. The way she looked at him. You didn't have to come back. He said quietly, I know, she replied, but I wanted to. The stars blinked above them like they were listening too, and for a moment the world felt still against just a man and the girl he once fed. Standing together as if nothing and everything had changed. Then she said something that sent a chill. Through him, they're coming soon, she whispered. And I'm not sure if even I can stop them. He looked at her, heart pounding. Then we face them together. He said. She smiled, just barely. Yes, she said. Together, it began with the sound of metal scratching against stone. He woke before the sun rose, not because of a dream, but because of that awful noise. The woman, no longer a child, was already outside. Crouched near the old fence, eyes locked on something in the dark. She didn't move, didn't blink. He stepped outside quietly, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What is it? He asked, voice low. She didn't answer right away, just pointed, there in the shadows of the trees. A strange shape moved. It was tall. Wrong? Wearing something that shimmered like glass but made no sound. The man narrowed his eyes, trying to see. The figure stepped back into the trees, vanishing like smoke. They've found you, she said finally. I don't know how, but they have. Who? He asked again, more desperate now. Who are they? She stood and faced him. The glow in her skin slightly brighter now, like it responded to danger. They're called the Corval Syndicate, she said. They erase problems. I'm just a man, he said. I grow food, I fix machines. She shook her head slowly. You're the man who saved the wrong girl. A sharp sound cracked through the trees like a whip's. Something struck the ground inches from his feet. He jumped back, heart slamming in his chest. It was a needle, long and thin, still humming with energy. Snipers, she said, pulling him. Down fast, get inside. He didn't argue, not this time. They rolled through the dirt and into the house as another shot hit the door behind them. She slammed it shut and placed her hand on the wall. Strange symbols lit up symbols he'd never seen before. The walls shimmered for a second like they were no longer wood. But something far stronger. "I upgraded your home," she said calmly. "I've been preparing for this." He stared at her, breathing hard. "How long have you known they'd come?" She looked at him, guilt flashing across her face. "Since the moment I returned, and you didn't tell me?" "You would have sent me away," she said. "You would have tried to protect me." He didn't answer, because she was right outside. More figures moved through the trees, their outlines blinking like faulty lights. She handed him a small device, round silver, with a blue button at the center. "What's this?" he asked, still catching his breath. "A fail-safe," she said. "Press it if I fall." "What happens if I press it?" "Everything burns," she said simply. "But you survive." He looked at the device, then at her. She was already moving, checking the windows, adjusting something in her armor. "You've done this before," Kay said slowly. "Too many times." She replied, "Why are they after you?" "Because I escaped," she said. "Because I know things they want buried, and I'm part of it now." "You were part of it the moment you gave me food," she said. "They don't forget kindness, they app. They see it as weakness." The sound outside grew louder. More footsteps, heavier ones. "Will they stop if they get me?" He asked. "No," she said, without hesitation. "But they'll enjoy it." He clenched his fists, looked at the beacon she gave him, then back at her. "Then we don't run," he said. "Not this time." She smiled, just a little. "I was hoping you'd say that." Suddenly, the roof cracked. Something heavy, landing hard. She pushed him behind the table and pulled a strange weapon from her back, part blade, part light. The air buzzed, thick with pressure and fear. Then the ceiling gave way, and the fight began. He had never seen light move like that before. It wasn't just bright, it was alive, dancing around her like a shield, like armor made of fire and memory. The moment the roof shattered, she had moved faster than his eyes could follow. The attacker dropped into the room like a stone from space, wrapped in metal, face hidden behind a glowing red visor. But she didn't hesitate. She met the enemy mid-air with a blade of light that sang as it sliced. Sparks flew, furniture exploded, walls cracked. He could do nothing but crawl behind cover and watch, heart pounding louder than the chaos. The girl he had once fed was no longer a quiet shadow. She was a storm now, a blur of strikes, flips, an impossible balance. But more of them came, one from the window, another through the wall. They moved like trained killers, but she was faster. Still, she couldn't protect him and fight them all at once. A third figure raised a weapon aimed straight at the man. Before he could react, a beam fired bright, fast, deadly. Time slowed. He watched it coming, frozen, certain it was the end. Then she was there, standing between him and the shot. The beam struck her in the side, and she fell, hard. His voice broke as he shouted her name. The attackers backed off, not expecting her to drop. He scrambled to her side, hands shaking. She was breathing, barely. Blood, if it could be called that, glowed faintly from her wound. "You have to run," she whispered. "Now, no," he said. "Not without you. They'll kill you." She groaned. "They won't stop." He looked at the small device she gave him, still clutched in his pocket, the fail-safe. She had told him to press it if she fell. He looked into her eyes, those same wide eyes that had once begged for food in silence. They were filled with pain now, and something else, fear. Not for herself, but for him. Another blast shook the house, the walls groaning. The enemy was coming again, weapons humming. He pulled her close, dragged her behind the metal table, shielding her as best as he could. "I'm not going to leave you," he whispered. "You came back for me. Now I stay for you." She closed her eyes for a moment, a single tear falling down her cheek. "Then we end this together," she said weakly. No, he said, gripping the device. We survived this together. He pressed the button. Nothing happened right away. Then the ground shook, low and deep, like thunder crawling from beneath. The floor, far away, hidden systems she had installed came to life. Lights flared under the house. Machines hummed in ancient tongues. And then the blast came. A pulse of blue light burst from the house, not to kill but to erase. The enemies outside were caught mid-attack. Frozen, burned, shattered in the force. Those still inside were tossed out like feathers in a storm. When the light faded, the house was gone, but he and she were still there, lying under the open sky, smoke. Curled upward, stars blinked above, silence, broken only by his breath and hers. He touched her face gently. Are you okay? She opened one eye and gave a tiny smile. Better now, she said. That was loud. He laughed. Though tears clung to his lashes, you scared me, he said. I thought I lost you. You gave me life once. She whispered, I'm not done repaying it. He looked around at the crater that used to be his home. We're going to need a new house, he said. She nodded, then slowly sat up, wincing. I know a place, she said, but we'll have to run again. He helped her stand. I don't care where we go, he said, as long as you're there. For the first time since she returned, she smiled fully, and together they walked into the smoke. Two shadows against the coming dawn, they walked for hours through the burned forest. Leaving behind the ashes of what was once a home, each step echoed with silence. But not the empty kind. This silence was full of questions. He didn't ask where they were going, and she didn't explain. She moved slower than before, one hand over the place where the shot had struck her, glowing softly through the fabric of her suit. He stayed close, ready to catch her if she stumbled, though she never did, even injured. She walked like someone carrying a mission larger than herself. By nightfall, they reached a hidden tunnel carved into the base of a rocky hill. She pressed her hand against a stone, and it hissed open, revealing stairs that glowed as they descended. The air inside smelled old but clean, untouched by war or time. He followed her into the dim blue light, feeling like he had stepped into another world. This place, he said, looking around. What is it? A forgotten shelter, she answered, built by my people long ago. It's beautiful, he whispered. Touching the walls that shimmered faintly like glass and metal had grown together. She sat down slowly, leaning back against the wall. Finally letting the weight of pain show in her face, he knelt beside her. Pulling out water and what little food he had left, you should rest, he said gently. I can't. She replied, eyes half closed. They'll send more. He frowned. How many of them are there? She didn't answer at first, then said softly, too many. He leaned back against the wall next to her, the silence growing heavier between them. After a while, he spoke again. Why do they hate you so much? She opened her eyes slowly, glowing faintly in the darkness. Because I refused to become what they wanted, she said, a weapon, with no will, no kindness, no past. They train orphans like me to obey, to kill without asking why. He swallowed, and you escaped that because of you, she said simply. You were the first person who looked at me like I was someone, not something. He didn't know what to say to that. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. I remember that food, she said, almost smiling. It tasted awful, but it was the best thing I ever ate. He chuckled. It was all I had left, and you gave it away, she said. That's not something many would do. The lights above them flickered once, then glowed brighter, as if the room itself listened and approved. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the shelter, and a strange blue screen appeared in the air. She sat up fast, her expression sharp again. What is it? He asked, heart already racing. They've found this place, she said, voice low. I don't know how, but they're close. he stood, fists clenched. Then we run again. She looked at him, then shook her head. No, she said, this time, we fight back. His eyes widened. How? There's just two of us. Not anymore, she replied. Tapping her wrist console, a faint pulse spread through the walls. And a second later, a platform rose from the floor. On it stood a suit. Not made for her, but for him. Metal, light, and memory forged into something new. He stepped back, stunned. That's not for me, he said. It is. She replied, I made it. From the tech you gave me, from the stone I left with you. From everything I've learned since, I'm not a warrior, he whispered. You were never meant to be, she said. But sometimes the universe chooses people not for what they are, but for what they once did. He stared at the suit. Saw his reflection in its glowing armor. It didn't look like him, but maybe it was who he was becoming. He looked back at her. What if I fail? She stood slowly, reaching out and placing her hand on his chest. Then we fall together, she said. But we try, because this time, they're not just coming for me. They're coming for you too. The chime echoed again, louder now. He stepped onto the platform and touched the armor. It opened like it had been waiting just for him. And when it closed around his body, something inside him changed. Not just strength, not just courage, something older. Something deeply human. The will to protect. Even when the odds are impossible. She smiled as the armor locked into place. You look ridiculous, she said, teasing softly. Good, he said. Let's go ruin their day. They came from the sky like falling knives, dozens of them, maybe more, wrapped in black armor, riding ships shaped like stingrays. The clouds tore apart as engines screamed above the shelter, and the earth itself seemed to shiver. Inside the hidden chamber, the humans stood still. Wrapped in the armor she had made for him, it felt strange, heavy, alive. Humming like it was part of something ancient, she stood beside him, her own armor glowing brighter than ever. The same blue pulse running through both of them. He had never trained for war, never held a blade, yet here he was wearing one on his wrist. Are you ready? She asked, watching him with calm fire in her eyes. No, he said honestly, but I'm not running. She smiled, and it wasn't the smile of a weapon or a warrior, it was the smile of someone who had finally come home. When the ceiling shook and pieces of stone fell around them, he didn't flinch. The enemy broke through like thunder, dropping from their ships with weapons raised. But this time, they weren't hunting a helpless girl. They weren't facing a weak old man. They were facing something else. Together, side by side, they moved. The human's armor responded to every motion, every breath, guided by something she had placed inside its memories, maybe, or a piece of her hope. She moved with fire and speed. A storm of light and steel, he followed, unsure. Clumsy at first, but the armor corrected him, strengthened him, lifted him. They fought as one. He shielded her back, and she cleared his path. They weren't the strongest in the galaxy, not the most skilled, but they were something the Corval Syndicate didn't understand. They were bonded by kindness, not fear, and kindness, when burned and buried, grows back sharper than hate. As enemy after enemy fell, confusion spread among their ranks. Who was this human? Why was he fighting like he belonged in a war written in stars? Then someone shouted in their alien tongue, recognizing him not by his name, but by hers. He's the one, they said. The one she spared. Fear cracked through the enemy line like lightning. They didn't expect this. They never thought a small forgotten Acta single food bar could lead to this day. She saw the panic in their eyes and knew it was time. She activated her final weapon, something born not from war but from memory. Her suit released a brilliant burst of light, and every attacker nearby froze, blinded, their systems shutting down. The humans stepped forward. Raising his voice for the first time, "You came to erase her," he shouted. "But all she needed was a chance, and I gave it to her." His voice echoed louder than the gunfire. "You didn't break her," he continued. "You made her unstoppable, and—" Beside her, he felt unstoppable too. The last of the enemies fled, their ships turning. Their courage shattered by something they couldn't calculate: humanity mixed with loyalty. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of smoking metal. He looked at her. Breathing hard beneath his helmet, she stood tall, chest rising slowly, armor dimming, her strength finally wearing down. "We did it," he said, almost laughing. "We actually did it." She nodded, then leaned on him just a little. "I told you I'd repay the kindness," she whispered, "but it turned out. You gave me more than I ever knew." He helped her sit down on the ruined ground, stars blinking above them again. "You saved me too," he said softly. "I didn't know I needed saving." They sat in silence, two figures shaped by chance, forged by a moment most would have forgotten, but not them. She looked at him one last time that night and said the words she had never dared to say when she was small and starving. "Thank you," he smiled, removing his helmet. "You're welcome." And with that, under the same stars that had watched it all, the story of a man and a little alien girl finally came full circle. Not with death, not with revenge, but with something rarer: hope.